Brian Funk is a musician, producer, songwriter, and Ableton certified trainer. He produces Ableton Live tutorials on his YouTube channel and makes his own custom Ableton Live sound packs. He has been hosting the Music Production Podcast since 2017 and also runs the Music Production Club, which is an online community for music producers that I joined earlier this year. Hey Brian, how you doing?
What's up? How are you today? Thanks for having me.
It's been kind of a crazy day, but we're here and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
So we're going to start a little bit about your musical roots. This is really the first time, you and I have talked, but I've listened to, some of your podcasts online. So you were originally a guitarist, right?
Yeah, guitar is the thing that got me into music. I never had much, or really any musical experience at all until I started playing guitar. I wasn't in school band. I didn't take piano lessons or anything, but at about 14 years old, learned some songs on guitar through a friend, and I fell in love with it right away. I was really kind of just blown away that you can play the songs I was hearing on the radio if I had a guitar. I didn't think that was a thing regular humans were allowed to do. I figured rock stars were on a mountaintop somewhere and getting struck by lightning and then came down with the ability. But that revelation fueled it for me. Really got me excited.
It was acoustic.
I don't even remember what guitar I was the first time I laid my hands on. But the first one that I had of my own was an acoustic, yeah. But I was going to electric. I had a really cheap electric guitar from, I think it was my older brother had one. That was in the attic that I dug out,
Nice.
and
Rusty
yeah,
strings and all.
yeah. It taught me how to change strings, figured that out. Took some lessons at first in the place in town, and then later on I found a really great guitar teacher. I guess I did guitar lessons for probably a good 5-6 years or so, very consistently, maybe even more.
Awesome. Yeah. So I probably never told you this, but I'm a drummer. So I think we're both
Cool.
kind of rock and rollers at heart.
Huh? Yeah.
And yeah, I took lessons too. That kind of seems to kind of be like a not cool thing to say you take lessons, but
I think for
right.
me too, because it was the 90s and grunge, Nirvana was like one of the hugest influences on me. And yeah, you weren't supposed to really know what you were doing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. So I needed to, I didn't understand notes. I didn't know what beats were, and completely started at zero. So I needed help.
I think lessons are underrated because, like you said, with the grunge movement and all that. And I still think that's going on today, where it's like, oh, I'm all 100% self-taught. And it's like, it is cool, but you shouldn't bad talk formal education and music as well. I don't know.
Yeah. I am glad I got into it on a more self-motivated way rather than if I was in school band and it was another class I took. Who knows where I would have wound up, but I wonder if maybe that would have taken the excitement away from me, because I did have a music class. It was 7th grade. It was like a general music class that I
Okay.
hated. I hated it. I didn't like anything about it. And we weren't listening to like interesting music for me anyway. Like it was, I don't even know what it
Right.
was, but it wasn't the stuff I was listening to. And I
Right.
just look back on myself. That was 7th grade, and I started playing right before 9th grade. I was probably ripe for the picking if
Okay.
it was shown to me the right way. You learn theory before you even touch an instrument in those classes.
It should be
And
the reverse, right?
yeah, I think so. You do the work of music first before the play of it. And that seems it didn't work for me.
Backwards, putting the cart before the horse.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, so what were some records during these formative years? Teenager Brian Funk. What was teenager Brian Funk listening to?
Well, it was a lot of Nirvana, and I picked up I think it's like a Hal Leonard guitar tab book for Nevermind. And then later I got In Utero. So that was big. I learned those songs. I learned the whole book. I would just study it and figure it out through the tabs. and lessons as well. Green Day was big too. I was lucky because there's a lot of bands where the guitar work was like it was an easy entry point, you know. And I'm not trying to say that any of that music is not complicated, and I'm not saying it's like that's easy music or anything, but it's good for beginners.
No, definitely. So when Green Day released American Idiot, that's like around when I started playing music, and I get what you're saying. It's kind of more beginner friendly, if you will.
Yeah, power chords. Once you learn the power chord, you can move that around the entire guitar in different rhythms, and you can play almost everything that was popular at that time.
Yeah.
It's a lucky time to get into it.
Awesome. So the 90s.
Yeah. So that would have been, for me, it was Dookie by Green Day,
Okay. 90. That was when I was born, I
94.
think. Not trying to make you feel old, I
No, I
promise.
don't feel old. I know how old I am.
Um, so was music always something you knew you wanted to pursue? I guess you kind of touched on that because you were talking about you took that general music course and you didn't really like it, but then you,
Hated it.
yeah.
Looking back, I was into a lot of creative stuff, drawing, had a lot of comic book characters and
Hell
things
yeah.
like that. I think the first thing I ever wanted to be was a New York Met as a kid. And
Okay, yeah, yeah. I wanted to be a basketball player, so
I
yeah.
wanted to do that until I realized how much baseball I would actually be playing. You know, it's like, oh, wait, I like playing Little League for a few months and then practicing a little every once in a while, but like all day, every day, maybe not.
Lots of baseball. Yeah, yeah.
But
And that's
yeah,
a
once
whole
I started playing music, though, I kind of really shifted and didn't do as much of the drawing and that kind of art. Just got into playing and wanted to be in bands. And yeah, I thought I wanted to do that for a really long time, be in like a band and, you know, make that life, that
well, that's
almost
what I
impossible
wanted.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got a lot in common, I feel.
Mhm.
So, when did you start doing like the computer music? Was that later along?
Yeah, that happened probably out of, I was going to say it's partially necessity, I guess, but I got into recording pretty early because I wanted something to play guitar with. I wanted to record, you know, like the 12 bar blues so I could practice a pentatonic scale over it. So I was using tape recorders, and a friend of mine had a karaoke machine that we realized we could kind of do overdubbing with. If we played the tape, we could also record a microphone on the same time to another tape, because that's how the karaoke machine would work. So we were like, oh, we can like kind of make these like recordings on top of our recordings. After that, I got a Tascam 4-track, like the cheapest one they had, I saved up for, and that was so fun to be able to layer stuff. And I remember the first thing I recorded was Rooster by Alice in Chains.
Here
I
comes a rooster.
Yeah, I knew like the couple guitar parts and layered them together, and that was just so cool to me. So the idea of recording happened early, but this is still the 90s, and maybe it was like around the year 2000. The same friend that taught me guitar, we pitched our money together and bought 8-at machines. And that was like the first thing I think I ever bought on eBay or on the internet ever.
What's an 8-at machine?
Basically, 8-track digital recorders that recorded onto VHS tapes. I guess like a home studio, semi-professional type of thing. And you could link 2 or 3 of them together. I think 3 of them you could ultimately link together. And you'd have like all these VHS tapes that you could record digitally on. And there was no screen or anything. It was just like a digital clock with a number.
I've never
Like,
heard of that. I didn't know you could record music directly to VHS. What's the logistics
yeah.
of that? Like, how do you get the music off the VHS? Or
Well, you would need like a mixer to route everything into the machine. So that was something else we bought, this nice 24 channel Tascam mixer that ultimately I sold to get a computer years later. With looking back, maybe a little bit of regret, but um, we would you'd have the mixer, and then all these machines would be routed in through the outputs of the mixer, and then you would I guess we routed it back in, and then you'd have your output of your mixer, and you would put that either to a DAT tape we would do. I had a DAT recorder, and that would go to cassette usually.
Sounds like a long process compared to today.
It was. And if you wanted to check your mix, you'd have to do that whole process and then put it on a tape and go listen to it, like in the car or something. And every mix you had to do in real time. You had to move the faders yourself. And it gives me a great appreciation for what we have now. I'm glad I got to do some of that kind of old school style
Yeah,
recording.
because what? So I was talking to my Berkeley online teacher, Carla Hassett, and she was kind of saying the same thing that like growing up kind of in the analog era has really made her appreciate the digital side of things, the convenience.
Yeah. And it's funny because so many of those things we ran into back in those days are the things we're trying to synthetically reintroduce.
Recreate,
You
uh-huh.
know, like the
Yeah.
tape hiss, the cassette tape had a charm to it, that analog sound. And so now I've got like all these plugins for that. And or even have a cassette. This is the same cassette player actually. I don't know if you can quite see it, but it's like a
No, it's
dual cassette player that I used to bounce my old mix. I mean, I've had that. That was my family's from when I was a kid. It doesn't work great anymore, but it works. But yeah, it does because you had to commit so much. You know, when I'd have a track ready to mix off of the ADAT machines, I'd have a notebook telling me like where all these faders needed to go at what point. So like at like 30 seconds, I'm going to bring this one in, or I have to mute this track because it's just a bunch of like dropping a tambourine on the floor, you know,
yeah, yeah.
there's just nonsense after there. But then, and also because of those limitations, maybe the first minute and a half was the tambourine on this track. And then at the end of the song, it was like a conga. So you had to sort of get ready for that because you didn't have another track to put it on. So some of your tracks wouldn't just be one instrument.
Yeah,
All
the
kinds
mix
of things that
use.
we had to deal with, bouncing tracks down. So like doing like a mix so that you could free up the other tracks. You could take like tracks like 1 through 8 and bounce them to 7 and 8, and then you have 1 through 6. I'm sorry, 1 through 6, bounce them to 7 and 8, and then you'd have 1 through 6 open again. But you were stuck with that mix on 7 and 8.
Yeah, because you already bounced them. I'm a little bit familiar. When I was a teenager, my bandmates did have I think it was an 8-track Tascam recorder, so I'm a little bit familiar with it.
Yeah,
But I didn't do too much on the production side those days. So,
right.
all right, let's jump to music production. How long have you been using Ableton?
I started using Live, I think it was 2009, probably, sometime in 2009. I think I said before, part of like the switch to computer was out of necessity. So right around that time, a band I'd been playing in broke up, and all my musical eggs were in that basket. And we had a lot of fun, and we were really working at it. And suddenly the band breaks up. I had been starting to record on a computer before then. I got Pro Tools, I think, in 2005 in the fall there. It was because it was the same time I started teaching English. I took like one of my first checks, and I was like, I'm getting a computer and Pro Tools,
Yeah.
I was recording a bit on the computer, but I wanted to be able to do it myself. I had this idea of like, it'd be awesome if like all these songs I make could have like, I could play them live. And I didn't really think of them as backing tracks, but I just thought like I would route, say like the guitar out and put it into like one amp, and then I'd put the bass out into another amp. I was thinking that way, where I'd have amplifiers and stuff. As I was learning at that time, I'd moved on to Logic. I started using YouTube to learn, and every tutorial I did for like a compressor or an EQ or anything like that would have people using Ableton Live. And I was like, Ableton Live, like, I think I have that when I got my Pro Tools. Um, it was
Okay.
version 4 that came with my Pro Tools, and I didn't understand it at all. It just looked like a spreadsheet. So I never really did much with it. It came, with like the bundled version that they still do today. So I started, scouring the dark corners of the internet to find a copy of Ableton Live. and
Okay.
got that. And I was rewiring Ableton Live into Logic, and I don't think you can do rewire anymore. That was a software, that kind of thing, almost maybe like Ableton Link if you're familiar with that. But
Yeah.
this allows you to route. It allowed you to Logic would be open. It'd be kind of like the DAW that was the master, was like in charge, and Ableton Live would kind of follow it, and you could open a track in Logic as an input, an audio track, and that would be the audio from Ableton. So that's how I was working for a little while. And after a few months of that, I realized I'm not even touching Logic anymore. I'm doing everything inside of Ableton Live. So why am I still opening it? I'll just really dive in. Yeah, and that was really because I wanted to be able to do music without risking it with a band. I think really like that was a big part of
Okay.
it.
Uh-huh.
Because I'd been in bands pretty much constantly up until that point since high school. And, just a little disappointed that, okay, another band broke up, like, huh. And here I
Yeah, I
am
know that
now.
feeling.
I still had songs and a couple like solo albums I'd made. So I was like, maybe I can try to do this myself, figure something out. And yeah, Ableton Live became the thing. To me, it was way more of a collaborator than what I felt Pro Tools and Logic was at the time. I felt like I was making music in spite of those programs and against them because, I didn't know it too well. But Ableton Live felt more like a songwriting tool and a creative
It was almost
instrument.
more user friendly.
Yeah. Well, like one example of that is a knob inside of Live, a dial, looks the same on every device, right? It's that kind of like circle with the little line going up to the middle. Every device looks like that. When I would open Logic, I'd have like the EX24 sampler, and it's one kind of spaceship. And then you open up like the drum machine, and it looks like a whole new spaceship from another planet.
The
And
gra-
I
the
didn't,
graphic interface kind of,
yeah,
yeah.
the
Yeah, I
compressor
come
was like a
from
totally other thing, and it all
I
looks
come from
separate.
Reason, so I get where you're coming from. It is really nice about Ableton where like it's pretty clean and is like if you know one instrument, it's kind of easy to learn the others.
It taught me things like, oh wow, like all these things have filters. All these things have these envelopes. And I was able to learn like basic synthesis type stuff through it that I'd really never understood before because it all was uniform. And the moment I was completely sold was when I did MIDI mapping. I had the M Audio, like little 25 key keyboard that had some knobs on it. And I mapped it to a knob for delay and reverb or something on a vocal track. And I was recording the vocal and turning the knobs at the same time and reacting and playing the effect. I felt like I was playing the studio like an instrument. And I was like, this is what I want to be doing. Like, I want it to be an instrument, not this thing I have to overcome in order to finish a song.
Okay.
So that was when I was like, I get it now. I'm in.
I think I might have some FOMO because I my MIDI keyboard doesn't have any knobs on it. It's a M Audio Key Station 49, but maybe one day.
Oh, I tell you, like it makes you feel like you're using some kind of hardware piece of gear because you're actually physically interacting with it. You can turn two knobs at once with two hands as opposed to with a mouse where you can only do one at a time. And it's kind of funny when you use your mouse or your trackpad and you're just kind of making these finger movements to do music, and it's the same movements you do to do your taxes or a spreadsheet or an email. It's nice to go into something that has like control and turn a knob and move a fader or push a button.
Maybe I'll catch something on sale and yeah,
Yeah,
cool. All right, so I'm really interested about this next question. So, you're kind of famous for like your music packs where you sample an instrument, usually like an unconventional instrument. And I'm curious as to how you got started doing that.
by accident, really. One of the first things I ever put inside Sampler in Live was the feedback you get on your laptop. If you've ever worked on a laptop and you've got an audio track in there and you're listening to the music through the laptop speakers, and then you arm the track with the internal microphone, your laptop suddenly starts whistling with this crazy feedback because the speaker is right next to the microphone, and in this microphone hears the speaker, and it just woo, makes like a crazy
Yeah, I
noise
think I
that
had
usually
something.
scares you, you know.
Yeah, I think I had something similar happen last week where,
Yeah. After I did that, I looked at the recording and I was like, huh, like I was just learning about the sample. Let me put this in there. And once I put in the sampler, you play the keys on your keyboard and it's like, oh, this is cool. It's nice. I think I reversed it too. So it had this kind of like interesting rhythm to it. And I just loved that. I was like, this is so cool. I made like an instrument out of this horrible noise.
yeah,
At that time, I was also just starting to make a website because I wanted to document what I was doing with music. So I put the pack up. I made it, a zip file and said people could download it. And synthtopia.com published it somehow. I don't really even know how they found out, but that was like, and still is. I read that website all the time. I love it.
okay,
And
I'm gonna write that down.
yeah, Synthtopia. So they pushed that out, and all of a sudden I had more downloads for anything I'd ever made ever in like a weekend,
Nice, nice.
So I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'd also just been watching a lot of tutorials and realizing that I'm listening to the music of some of these people that I'm learning from, because they'll show stuff and I'll hear the music that they're demonstrating and be like, ah, that's cool. Let me listen to it. So I was already a teacher at that point. So I was like, maybe I can make some videos for these now and put those out. And I just loved doing it. And it also
Yes,
kept me consistently doing it too, which was nice because, like I said, I didn't have the band anymore to do band practice. I decided to do this weekly because I was so excited. Whoa, people want to download my stuff. Like, I'm going to do this every week. And that gave me a consistency that really helped me grow, because I didn't really know much about using Ableton Live at that point. I was still really new to it. And even a lot of my music production understanding was pretty fresh and rudimentary. So doing something weekly had me coming back to it all the time and wanting to learn something new that I could try.
your Ocean sample pack you released, I think it might have been back in October. It like
Oh,
arrived in the nick of time for my EP because like
yeah, you were
yeah, I
saying
really
that's
like this.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, because I that's kind of become a theme in my music is kind of like ocean waves, and then I also kind of like simulating it with white noise. But
Hmm.
yeah, that sample pack literally arrived like right at the right moment. So thank you for that.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, yeah, and I really like your
Yeah.
Game Boy sample pack as well. That one's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another real fun one for me. That was one of the things that got me into learning MIDI, actually, was when I realized that you can make video game noises. I think those are the first synth sounds I got excited about. I was like, oh my God, it sounds like a Nintendo, and because it had those really primitive tones. I don't know if this is for everybody or just maybe someone like me, my age, that spent who knows how many hours playing these games, but
Me
they
too.
they have like a built-in nostalgia to them because they've
Definitely.
been subconsciously looping in your head for your whole childhood. So yeah, I was like, oh, these are so cool. And for that one, I wound up getting in touch with somebody that made this thing called the Synth Boy, which was a Game Boy that had this little docking station, and you had MIDI that came out of it and audio, and it was really cool. And he let me borrow it. I looking back, I should have made him an offer to buy it off him. but yeah, that was a lot of fun. And yeah, I'd gotten this thing called the MIDI NES as well. And this is probably before I was using Ableton. It was. And the MIDI NES is a Nintendo cartridge for the old Nintendo Entertainment System with a MIDI cable that just comes out of it, and it's homemade, and it has a little software, I guess, that
Kind of like
allows you.
Mario Paint.
Yeah, but not even anywhere near that evolved. It was just like a single screen, and it allowed you to access the 5 channels of audio on the NES, and Yeah, that was a big part of the Nintendo sample pack I've done, and I was using that for my own music, and I just got such a kick out of it. That I can have video game sounds in my music.
Bleepy bloop, bleepy bloopy noises. You ever listen
Yeah,
to Anamanaguchi?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great
They're a
stuff.
really cool band. Um, yeah, it was like I guess around those times. I think that must have been like 2006 or seven that I got that thing. And apparently I'm lucky because it seemed like it just got stopped being made, and now it's like expensive on eBay, but
Nice.
I'm keeping it.
Yeah, I want to hold on to that one.
Yeah, it's so cool. I don't use it as much as I should, but like every piece of gear, I guess. But
Yeah, that's how it
when
goes.
when you want to use it, it's just really neat to just be sending MIDI right into the Nintendo, and it's coming out usually like a TV speaker.
Right. Okay, so move on to our next question. What's your favorite part of music production? Maybe that's a not a great question, but
No, it's interesting to think about. On some level, they're all fun, and on some level, they're all torture. It can be incredibly frustrating at times. I guess I really like the songwriting part. I like when a song comes together. I like sounds too. Sometimes it's just sounds that make me want to do it and make kind of take me someplace. I love the next day after I've worked on something and I'm driving to work and I get to listen to it in the car, and hear how did that come out? And
that can mess with your head too, though, because you're just like,
oh yeah, that's a lot of
yeah,
people don't do it at all. They recommend against it. You can get your kind of demo-itis where you fall in love with the rough sketch of a song and then you can't progress it. You could be too harsh of a judge on yourself because I'm terrible, but you only worked on it for like one night. Or you can, yeah, you stop hearing the mistakes. Yeah, there's a million reasons not to do it, but I like that. I enjoy it. And I usually manage to develop it a bit too. Like I get to think about it. Sometimes I'm singing along, trying to figure out lyrics as I'm driving along, seeing what works and trying to remember things for when I'm going to work again later. And it can help me have a purpose for when I get home instead of like, what am I going to work on today? It's like, I kind of know I had this idea in the car.
do you know Poet Mystery?
No, I don't think so.
He's also an Ableton guy. He's got a pretty cool YouTube channel. He does a lot of like sound design, kind of Sophie inspired stuff. And I think he was saying in his newsletter, you can think of music production like cooking, and in
Yeah.
cooking there's like inactive time where you're just like letting the pot boil for, an hour, and then in music production that's like kind of the time where you're in your head like, okay, how could I make this better when I go to sit in front of the computer again?
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
thought that's
there's a
interesting
lot of
comparison.
connections with cooking. I
Hmm.
find that comes up a lot. You can overbake it. You can burn it. You put too many spices in there. Just like
Too
you
many
can.
plugins. Yep, yep.
Yeah. I had a really eye-opening experience early on where I was working on a song and I decided I'm going to really put some time into this one. I'm going to get it right and I'm going to work on it. I've learned a lot and this is going to be the one I'm going to do. And I don't know how long I spent trying to craft it, put compressors on everything, and did everything I could think of to the song. And one day I was like, let me just see how far it's come from the original bounce I did like on day one. And it was so much worse. Like the first one had all this energy and power, and it wasn't finished or anything, but the one I had worked on was just flat. It had no life. And
Huh.
everything sounded better once I turned all that stuff off, overcooked it. Sometimes, like certain foods are just good. Don't do anything to it. Just keep it
Too
clean and
many
neat.
cooks,
Yeah.
too many plugins.
Yeah. Well, even like one I've come back to, I did a podcast on it called Mise en place, I think is how it's said, the French idea of what chefs do. They,
Mm.
when they're going to cook, they get their ingredients out, they get their tools out, and they set everything up, and then they work. And you can take that into music making where I'm gonna work with these plugins, I'm gonna work with these sounds. I got everything set up and that's it. Like a chef isn't gonna then go into the spice cabinet and be like, what else can I add to it? And that's what we do with our plugin folders and our sample folders. What else can I put in
And
here?
and now I'm drawing the connection to fashion even. Like I think the other day I actually like laid out all the clothes I wanted to wear on my bed and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna wear these. And I almost like that approach more than picking out one by one. Like, oh, I don't know. But yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, that makes sense too. Because,
yeah.
right, you could, and I know nothing about fashion, but you could have an outfit and just like one little accent on it, and then that has power, right? It kind of pops out. But if you put in too many accessories and things and too many colors, then it just becomes hard to know what you're even supposed to look at. And music can be like
Right.
that. You sometimes just a few elements are really powerful, and you can really take them all in and notice the details about them. And this was a dream I had from the 4-track days. I wish I had infinity tracks. I could just make these huge things. And once you do that, you realize like, oh, I just made like noise. I made all this stuff, and now you don't even know what you're hearing. It's just a wall of sound.
Yeah, I got a short little anecdote, I guess, kind of on the same page. So, probably about what 10 years ago now, I was in two different bands, and one was a three-piece, it was just drums, bass, guitar, and the other was a five-piece, drums, bass, guitar, I think saxophone, and the vocalist. And one of my friends who I was in a band with in high school, he was there at the show, and he's like, "Yeah, I liked the three-piece better because the five-piece band, it's like too many people competing for the spotlight." So sometimes less is more.
Yeah, that's what my band is right now. We're a three-piece: guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. And you have so much room with that. And even within that structure, I'm finding it's often much more effective if I play less guitar, if I let it breathe
Mhm.
more. Because then when the guitar comes in, it hits more.
Definitely, yeah. All right, so you've been doing music quite a long time, and I guess this one's kind of for me, but maybe someone else might get something out of this. What do you do when you like release music and you're hoping it's going to be like, a big hit or whatever, and then it's just not, it doesn't get the reception you were hoping for?
I really don't know that feeling because everything I've done has been met with critical acclaim and sales. That's just part of it. I don't even, at this point, I don't even think about it really. I don't expect anything. I don't even know if anyone is ever going to listen to it. I would love it, of course, and I wish people would, and some people do, and it's really nice to hear about that. But it's so out of your control, you know. You just, I mean, you can do things obviously to promote your music, but I also have very little interest in that stuff too. I can do that though, because you know, like I have like my job as a teacher, right? So I'm not relying on it for that kind of stuff. Even musically, like there's other ways that I'm doing stuff and making a little bit of money through that. So that's not as important. It'd be great, but it's also kind of freeing too. I think I try to look at that side of it. Yeah, it's sometimes you're like, oh man, like I worked so hard on this and want nothing, nothing. No, they can't even give it away anymore. We used to try to sell our albums with the band,
Uh-huh.
and like now people don't even want to take them from you. But uh, yeah, it's weird these days the way music is because it's so readily available, and it's not like it used to be where it was something you had and owned. And it's not like that for me even. I mean, I collect some records, but even it's not like it used to be where, oh, I got to get that new record so I can hear it. I can even find
Right.
out if I like it. I don't know what a good answer to that is, but I just don't put too much weight into it, I guess.
That's not the reason you're doing it. Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, maybe there is some of that, I guess. I want when I'm doing it, I'm imagining like, oh, I wonder if people will like this. But half the time when I start thinking that way, I fall out of the zone or like the flow, and then I get critical and I'm like, oh, but I did that weird thing and I don't know, my voice sucks, and all these things you start thinking about, and
Inner critic.
yeah, it all starts bubbling up. I'm
Mm.
happiest when I can forget about all that. But I get that too, even like if I do like a YouTube video or a podcast or something, and it's like, this is a really good one. I'm like, oh come, why didn't it hit any with any, like what's going on? And I don't know. Um, what are you gonna
All
do?
right.
Unless you want to really get into the science of it and become a marketer. I don't know.
The psychology.
Yeah, right.
That's
Like,
kind of takes the fun out of it, right?
yeah, I find it kind of interesting too, actually. I did like read a book or two on like the YouTube algorithm. There was one called like the YouTube formula. And it actually made me not hate the algorithm like maybe I would have in the past, because it kind of just said like all the algorithm is it's just what people are drawn to, right? Like all YouTube, all Instagram, all they want is your attention. So they're going to promote and push forward the things that are getting attention. And that's why
Mr. Beast.
yeah, he's captivating, right? You're like, oh wow, what is he doing? What happened? You want to know, right? And they
Uh-huh.
talk about Mr. Beast a lot in that book, actually. Yeah, all that kind of curiosity stuff, and then understanding that kind of it made me experiment with it too, and some of it worked, and some of it I look back and I'm like, oh, that's lame. I'm doing like the face,
Yeah,
and
right.
pointing or whatever. But it made it a little more fun because at least I wasn't like totally clueless and just thinking this mysterious force of an algorithm just doesn't like me, because that's not what it is.
I've been doing research myself on it, and yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not, you can't say it's like evil or anything like that. They want people watching videos for as long as possible, and as
Hmm.
YouTubers, that should be our goal. And whether that's moral or right or wrong, kind of hard to say.
Well, it's also had me pick up on things. There's some people that are really good at it.
Hmm.
Um, I like their videos still. I'm like entertained with it, right? There's some people that are really good at it, and like I can't stand it because it's so like clickbaity, or it's just the trend of what's popular, and it's an attention sucker, and it's stealing your life, right?
Right.
So it's helped me kind of understand where I want to be in that world too. And again, like really, even if you do it to the T, like you still don't have any control over it. You're trying, but you can also be like giving up what you are want to be
We
doing or
stand
what you
for.
stand
Hmm.
for. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a slippery slope there.
Definitely. No, I can relate. Let's move to sound design. So this is something I'm pretty interested in, but I feel like I don't know a whole lot about it. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to know more about it formally, I guess. Do you have any recommendations for someone just starting out in sound design or trying to get their feet wet, other than maybe just, experimenting?
Well, I bet you probably know a lot about drum sounds, right? Like designing your drum sounds. You probably tune your drums, I would imagine, right? You probably put blankets in the kick drum and towels or
Pillows. Yeah.
wallets on the snare drum, right? I think that's a kind of sound design. You're sculpting that sound. Maybe that term is a little scary because it sounds like a whole other field, and it obviously can be. You can go really deep in designing your sounds, but it can also be small. Like, I mean, I don't want to say it because you said not to, but it is experimenting, trying stuff out and combining things. And I especially like the unusual things. I think it's really interesting how our mind will hear something and interpret it, right? And sometimes it's not accurate. Like I've seen a lot about like Foley in movies, and there's a lot of people that will, instead of rain, they use bacon in frying bacon
Okay.
because it sounds more like rain than rain, which
It's
is kind of funny, right?
hyper realistic. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
sometimes like footsteps and things like that, or punches in movies. Like you punch something and it doesn't go, like
Yeah, they
that.
definitely exaggerate it. Yeah.
There was a great one about the sounds of Mortal Kombat a few years ago, and a lot of the bone crunching stuff that they do in that game. It's like celery and vegetables being smashed. And they've tried it with actual bones, but it doesn't sound like it or
Oh,
sound the way we think it sounds. Being a little bit abstract about it, I find really nice because it's really good to know the tools technically and understand how like things like filtering works and distortions and harmonics and all of that. But then to also dial it back or step away. So, for example, in Ableton Live, I might create a rack and map a few parameters to a knob, but I might call it something weird like, Dream Cloud. This is the Dream Cloud knob. And, it might technically be a filter with some reverb and maybe like a little bit of distortion fading in as it turns up. But Dream Cloud to me is so much more visual and,
okay. There's a
imaginative.
knob. There's a knob in Ableton that my Berkeley Online professor just kind of told us about a few weeks ago called the gray out.
The gray
So I
out,
think
yeah.
it's
Like a DJ effect, right?
yeah, it's like a filter, and I don't know what else it has on there, but I think there's a delay. But yeah, so you're
Hmm.
saying combining effects to kind of come up with new effects, and then like kind of giving it a
Yeah.
name that kind of makes it make sense. Okay.
There's a lot that happens when you just start moving down a road. You can be deliberate. I mean, sometimes I'll make an instrument with like the sampler, and I know I want it to sound like a realistic classical guitar. So I'm sampling the classical guitar and being painstaking about that. And it gets you thinking about, every time I play the string, even if I play the same note, it sounds a little bit different. Whether how hard I play it or if it's already been vibrating, if my fingernail touches it a little bit. And then you sort of realize, like, well, there's like a bazillion possible variations on this one note. So how can I program that in there? And you can do things like that, and that's a little more deliberate. But I also think the experimentation part of like, all right, you know what? I'm going to take 17 glue compressors in a row and just crank them up and see what it does to the sound. And I'm going to convert that to audio. I'm going to sample it. And I'm going to
Really
time
sam
stretch it and pitch it down or up and just kind of see what goes on and be open to interesting results. Sometimes when you're really trying to do a specific thing, you sort of miss the really cool stuff that happens along the way, the little side quests.
Yeah, I guess what I'm struggling with maybe like on my side of things is like when you have a musical idea, you can hear it in your head, whereas with sound design, it's like do you hear the sound you're looking for in your head, or are you just literally tweaking knobs and trying to make it sound cool?
Not, that's mostly playing around and making it sound cool. Um, but sometimes as you start getting something, you're like, oh, it'd be nice if this was like a pad or this was had a movement in the frequencies. And then you realize like, okay, I could do that with an envelope on the filter, or I can play around with the pressure sensitivity on like I use Ableton Push. I can, kind of make it throb by like having the pressure play around with a distortion or something. I like this way of like kind of going out into the wilderness with sound. And then when I find something interesting, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I can turn that into like a cool keyboard sound. That'd be like a nice melody type of thing, a pluck. So, and then those kind of more traditional synthesizer programming things start coming into play. And sometimes you layer it in. Like if I'm trying to make a certain kind of sound too, like a snare drum, I mean, sometimes you like just use a snare drum. Like it already exists. And
Hmm.
if I'm trying to make a realistic snare drum out of a bag of potato chips, almost like why? You know?
Okay, so that's like an anti-sound design approach where you just
Yeah,
take
if I'm
a
gonna make the snare drum out of potato chips, I want it to be different than a real
pre-existing
snare drum. I might want an element of that. So maybe I realize I got this cool like top end from that. And then maybe
layer.
I'll layer it. Yeah, I'll find something that has like kind of the bottom tone or something and put that together.
I'll have to experiment with that, with getting a bag of potato chips and layering it with my snare drums.
It's such a good activity to just start recording a couple everyday objects and seeing what you can do with them, because so much happens once you have an audio file and you start pitching it up or down or time stretching it or running it through effects, reversing it. You realize that there's just music everywhere. You
Right.
just kind
Yeah.
of have to see it. Everything is making cool sounds, and stuff you walk by every single day can be really interesting when you take those sounds and sometimes combine them with maybe some more traditional stuff. It really adds a new layer, um, a depth to music, I think, because you record that bag of potato chips and you've also got the reverb of the room you've recorded it in.
Hmm.
So now there's a little bit of extra space to that snare drum that the sample didn't have, or the recording maybe you did in the studio.
Do you have one of those portable recorders?
I do. It's actually not right next to me. I have a real simple one. It's the Roland R07. It's small. It's smaller than my iPhone. It's a little bit thicker. What I like about it is it's very portable and it turns on fast and you can be recording real quick. Most of the time, though, I'll use my iPhone a lot. It sounds good. The mics on those things are good. I used to tell the students in my Berkeley class, like, yeah, even though the phone has a piece of garbage mic, at least you have it on you and you can get the recording. And sometimes a piece of garbage mic has an interesting character to it. And that might sit nicely against like your fancier mics or the pristine samples you're using that were recorded in some
You
billion-dollar
could
studio.
you could record it using both, and then you kind of have the option of
Yeah.
which one is
But
more
I think
suitable.
in terms of sound design, like don't be a snob about anything. Any of the gear, any of the microphones, everything kind of has something to offer. I'm actually at a point right now where I'm very interested in like real oddball, strange microphones that aren't so
Okay,
clean and don't give me the perfect representation of what I'm recording.
cool. Okay, so my last question for this section. Have you ever considered pursuing a career in sound design?
Like again, like for me, like I've kind of got a career. I teach high school English, right? So I don't feel like the need to pursue the career, but I do pursue work in it. And in fact, recently I did samples and presets for Baby Audio with their new Grainferno plugin, which is such a cool synth, granular synth that allows you to combine like multiple samples, two samples at the same time, and morph between them. That was really fun. I went around, made some sound. I used some sounds I already had. They were interested in the ones I already had done in packs, but I wanted to also just take those sounds to some other level. So a lot of what I did with that was taking my packs and processing them again, like kind of sampling my samples.
In
And
Ableton?
yeah, and that
Nice.
was a lot of fun. And then to try to create presets for it was great. I would like doing that occasionally. I don't know if that would be like, I would want that to be my career though. It's an aspect of music I love doing. And it often leads to a lot of creativity. And if I had to do like 10 of those projects a day, I wouldn't get to make the music, you know? And I guess I said earlier, I like when songs come together and ideas come together musically. So I wouldn't want to
Going back to
put
the
too
the
much work
baseball,
into it.
going
Yeah.
back to the baseball, where you like sound design, but you don't want to do that much sound design where you don't get to do other aspects of music.
Yeah, I mean, I do really feel pretty fortunate of where I wound up in all of this, you know. I'm kind of glad I never made it in the bands. I mean, we tried and we did like a couple tours and we had a lot of fun for like we set up our own tours for like 2 weeks up and down the East Coast of the US. That was great. If you're with your friends, you're playing places, it's exciting. But that was 2 weeks. Like I was good after that. I was ready to come home, and
Mhm.
we were sleeping on floors in cars and if we were lucky, some motel. But yeah, after a while, I wanted to come home. That's a bit of a grind. And I'm glad that there's no pressure in what I do. with music, because if I had that, that could very well be a great motivator too, of course, right? So, and again, maybe this is part of my whole way of looking at things. This is how it is for me, right? So I'm choosing to look at the benefits of it, right? Sure, maybe if there was some pressure on it, there might have done something else and went in a whole other magical direction. But the fact that there's not does sort of keep a purity to it for me.
Low stakes, low stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have those stakes built in for myself. I want to do cool stuff. I want to make interesting things, but I'm glad that I don't have to
Rely on it.
rely on it. Yeah, like I don't have to make, you know, some presets or some sounds for, or write a song for a baby food commercial because I need to make the money. Um, I'm sure I would enjoy the hell out of that if I had to do that too. But it is nice that there's a freedom that comes with it. So, like, yeah, you can get paid, but you have to do what you're getting paid for.
All right, so we're gonna move on to I think our last section, if I'm not or no, we have two more sections. Are we doing okay on time?
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm having fun.
All right, awesome. You're probably like one of the go-to guys, I'd say, on YouTube for Ableton tutorials. And so you have the Music Production Club. And what inspired you to start that?
That was wanting to build a community, right? After doing tutorials and the free Ableton Live packs, especially, I had gotten a lot of emails and people kind of in the world of what I was doing. So I wanted to do something that made a bit of a community out of it. And I also wanted to increase a little bit of pressure to be consistent, right? So I want to produce something every month for the people in the club and make things interesting, things happen. And that's been really great for me because it's made me do more sound design and create, packs. And it led to me like writing the book that I have because that started out as a music production club idea. And yeah, just that kind of stuff.
I'm amazed by your productivity because you're a high school English teacher as well, and you must be like really good at time management, I feel.
I always wish I was better. But something that happens too with having that job is my time gets limited in a lot of ways. It's funny, right? Because it limits my time, but I also have a lot of free time at that job. We get vacations and stuff, summer vacation and all. But when I come home, I only have a few hours to do anything musically. So it makes me feel like it's precious and a bit urgent. So I get to work. Now, sometimes over the summer, I can get a little lazy with it. I can be like, I don't have to go back to work for like 3 weeks or a month or whatever. And I can do it tomorrow, I can just hang out.
Yeah.
So there's no pressure. Sometimes I find myself being more productive when I'm actually working. But I just try to do something every day. That's really it. Whatever that looks like. It might mean actually making music. It might be working on the podcast. It might be making some packs. It might be teaching my Berkeley class. However that takes shape, but I do want to always push a little bit forward.
Doing a podcast with Robert Rutledge.
Yes, totally. You got me reflecting on things and thinking about
Brilliant.
why and how, and these conversations too about making music and art and why we do it, I find interesting and inspiring. And sometimes it's hard to find the reason, and to talk about it is helpful. I mean, doing the podcast for me has been the most educational adventure of my life, like beyond college and school. I mean, just so much that you learn
Definitely.
talking to people. I'm so glad I do it. And if they didn't get published, I'd still want to do it. But and it's a great excuse to talk to new people.
I love it because like where I live, there's like not a lot of people who are into music like, we
Yeah.
are. So it's like really nice to talk to someone like you who, just by looking in your background. You got a ton of keyboards and stuff. I don't,
Distractions.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's really like, and I try to, be myself during these interviews. And it's just nice to have these conversations, I feel. And like you said, just thinking about music and getting other people's perspectives because I feel like I spend all day up here and it's nice getting to hear other people's thoughts on things. So
Yeah, it's important. Where are you? Where are we?
I'm I'm in Bogota, Colombia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot there musically
Not in
or
this neighborhood, not
yeah.
in this part of town, unfortunately, but like you said, it's kind of like I don't know, blessing in disguised would be the expression. Cause like there's some days where like, I feel like I'm a one man band and I got like all this motivation. Like today, for example, I feel like I made a ton of progress on my Berkeley Online final project, which I'm hoping to actually do on YouTube, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, then other days it's just a few weeks ago, like I almost broke this microphone. It's like, oh my God, what's not happening today?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean,
but
I'm on Long Island in New York and it's not too far from New York City and Brooklyn. There's some music going on, but there's still like I don't know a lot of people that are producing with Ableton Live or with and there's very few that I'm aware of, and it's mostly a pretty lonely endeavor, which is so
mhm.
weird because music has always been a very together communal thing. And now you can do it all by yourself, which is great. But again, the cost of that, right? So having people to talk to and interact and just, I really connect with like people I work with that are also musicians or in some kind of art or writers and stuff. And it's so nice to talk to them and they like you feel it from them too, like, yeah, okay, you're like one of us. And
Yeah, one of us, one of
yeah,
us.
because you're almost kind of like, I don't know how anyone else is making it without this.
Right,
But
no.
yeah.
So my next question, I guess we kind of touched on that. What inspired you to start the music production podcast, just kind of getting to talk to people about music and
Yeah, one thing I like to say about that too, I mean, now it's been going on a long time. 2017, I think, right around this time of year. So it's
Mhm.
almost 10 years, which is so crazy. But I'd wanted to do that for years before that. And it was this thing I kept building up in my head. And we can do this with our projects. You start, oh, yeah, I could do this. And I'll go, first, I need this. I need to get this. And I'll have segments and I got to make these. I just made it too big where I got paralyzed by it until for whatever reason, one day I was just wondering if I could even talk into the microphone that long. And I tried to record a couple episodes and I did. I made a few and I was like, okay, I can do that. And then uh, got a guest or two and, just did it little by little, but it was just about getting started.
right.
I didn't have theme music, I didn't have anything on those first episodes. I don't even know if I had the art ready, or maybe I did, and that's why it's still what it is. It just left it. Uh, you just gotta go. It's so much easier to keep going, right, than it is to like start going. So just get going, and it doesn't matter how it is really. And the nice thing about is the first stages is no one's going to hear it anyway, for the most part. Although with my podcast, that's the most downloaded episode. I guess people decide to start at episode one, or maybe just because it's the oldest, it's been around. But yeah, but for most of this stuff, like the beauty of anonymity is you get to be sloppy and unknown, make mistakes and no one knows.
Definitely. And then at least for me, for YouTube, I like going back to the very beginning of someone's kind of journey and just like
Yeah.
seeing how much progress they've made. So,
Yeah. You can click that button, oldest,
hmm
and see
yep.
where people started. And yeah, I mean, I don't know too many people that when they started, they had it all figured out and it was like this slick
Exactly.
production. Most of them are on a webcam and even the content of their channel is so different from where it wound up.
Yep, you gotta kind of figure it out as you go, as opposed to, like you said, getting paralyzed and being like, oh, it has to be perfect.
You can't really know anything until you start going, you know? I heard this from someone, and I just love it for the metaphor of it. Like, it's like driving a car at night. You can only see a little bit ahead of you, but you can make it the whole way home, you know?
Mm.
You don't know what turns are coming up until you start driving the car. You don't know what things you're going to discover until you start moving forward a little bit and putting stuff together.
Same thing with YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, with everything really, I guess. Like so many times I feel like we're just using music production as a metaphor for life. But it's it's true, like even like writing a song, you just gotta throw a couple chords together and see what happens, and then make a new chord and sing something, and what do you get? And it, I don't, I don't really hear it first most of the time. Maybe I hear a song that I'm like, I want to make a song that's kind of like that, and that usually has more to do with like genre or sound than it does an actual song. But I almost never am like humming a tune and then I got to get it down.
More kind of experimental approach. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I was fleshing it out. It's like more sculpture. You got a big rock that you're trying to chip away at and find out what's inside.
All right, so we're gonna move to our last section, being an educator. So I'm curious about this one. You're an English teacher, English high school or high school English teacher. How did you get started doing that? Did you go to university for that, or what was that?
Yeah, that's one of the things you do need a degree and certification for, right? Whereas music, no one's ever going to give you a certificate. Well, you can get degrees for music, but uh,
I don't know if it'd be such a good idea.
well, I say this to
Depending
people in
on,
my Berkeley
yeah.
class that
Mhm.
because sometimes you get people that are really usually people are working hard and they love it and they want to grow and learn, but sometimes you get people that are, if I had to guess, maybe turning in things they've had for a year or 2 years or they did in another class, and or they're just kind of throwing something together that isn't really the assignment,
Jiving. Mm.
and like they're trying to get the grade so they get the credit. I don't really see a lot of point in that because, okay, you might get the credit, but no one really cares about your certificate in music, and no one ever gives you the right to be an artist. No one ever, it's about what you make so much. Now, teaching, like, yes, you need to do that stuff. You need that formal stuff. And it almost, in a weird way, makes more sense to me to go through the motions of that just to get the degree than it does with music. And I don't understand what that approach is with music. But yeah, you gotta. So I got into English teaching mostly because I didn't know what I was doing. I was never dreamed of being a teacher. I wonder what my 14-year-old self would say finding that out, because that was never anything I wanted to do. Um, but in college, like I took kind of like the liberal arts path and didn't know what I was doing. I thought I wanted to do music, but I didn't have the background to do like music at college, really. I took English on because I had a couple classes I really liked. I learned kind of clearly about myself in college that I was into creativity. And I had English classes that allowed for that, which I never really had too many of them before that. So,
Creative writing.
yeah, creative writing, things like that. And I was into that. So I took English and still kind of not really knowing why. And then when I graduated, I was like, well, I guess I could try teaching. Maybe that's what you do with English. And again, like, I was kind of going and
Seems like it's worked out.
it has. And my biggest fear at the time was like, what if I don't like this? Because you do it, you study it for a long time before you ever get in the classroom. And when you get in the classroom anyway, it's totally different than the studying of it because like you're coming up with all these like lesson plans and ideas in college with the assumption that every kid in the class wants to read and write, which none of them do, pretty much.
How old are your kids?
They're
No.
teenagers, so anywhere from like about 14 to 18.
Okay. Yeah, they can. Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple here and there that like to read, but it's not like cool. It's not cool to write, you know.
I
Um,
think it's cool to write.
it is, I think, too. But I think what happens is school beats that out of them. We teach them how to write essays they don't care about, and they read books they don't relate to, and they like kind of lose the love of it and it becomes work. There's probably music I could play for you for the next 2 weeks or 12 years. And then by the end of it, you'd be like, I hate music. I could show you movies that you don't want to watch. And after a while, you just think you hate it. Like the college experience for teaching doesn't really factor that in, because when you go into a classroom, like every single kid is a variable that at any moment can do anything, you know? To say anything and just or going through stuff, and there's so much there. So I didn't know if I was going to like it, but I did. I wound up, I for the most part like it a lot.
That kind of seems like your thing. You seem to be like, really passionate about educating, whether it be on your YouTube with the tutorials or English teaching. So you feel like that's kind of your calling is being an educator?
No, uh, calling, I don't know about that. It's a great way to learn too, teaching. I like to learn, so it's a little bit of a trick, I guess. Like I didn't know grammar when I went into the classroom the first time. I had to teach it the next day, and then I had to figure it out. Like, which then do I use? The one with the A or the E? I didn't know until I was stepping in front of the classroom with it the next day. Right? Like, I didn't have a
Okay.
real grasp on any of that stuff. And I think a lot with music too, where like going through it and teaching it, you have to prepare it, you have to think about it and present it in a way that people can understand and try to imagine what it's like to not understand. It takes you through the understanding process a lot.
Kind of
So,
the empathy. Mm.
yeah, I guess I don't know if it's teaching's the calling, but I love to learn and I do like to talk about what I learned.
Okay, so we're coming up on the end. So I'm curious about how you got your gig with Berkeley Online.
That was really due to I'd been working doing this Ableton Live stuff, right? Making my packs and stuff and putting myself out there as somebody that makes sounds, really. And that was all it was. I made a sound, I made it, you can download it. I think it's cool. If you want it, use it in your music. By doing that, I started getting people thinking I knew what I was talking about, asking me questions about stuff with Ableton Live or production that I didn't know the answer to, so I'd try to learn it. Ableton as a company was really supportive and would start sharing my stuff, and that was awesome. I really do remember the moment when they tweeted out a pack I released. I was like, oh, I can't believe, like the company that, like, what? That blew my mind. But because I was getting involved in the community and stuff, I wound up going for the certified training. I think that is the credential that got me into Berkeley. I knew Loudon Stearns, who was an Ableton certified trainer and a Berkeley instructor at the time. And we'd collaborated on a pack at one point. And I guess through that, maybe they needed someone to teach, and he asked me if I was interested. Probably a little combination of a teaching background, having now an Ableton certification that I can say I have some credential in music.
Is
You know,
that hard to get?
yeah, I'd say so, because probably because of the limited amount of people that they take on at a time. So it's a process. You apply for it and you send a letter, and they have to be running the program at the time and in your location. So there's a little bit of that too. You do an interview and then you actually go to like a whole event, a certification event, and they're not teaching you. They're actually seeing how you teach. So they kind of assume you
Interesting.
already understand your Ableton Live chops, but they want to make sure you're uh, able to teach, you're understanding person, patient. You know, I'm not an employee of Ableton, but sometimes I represent them or get hired by them. So I think they want to make sure I'm not like, bro, have you even used a compressor before? Like, you know, not like condescending, like, because there's a
Right,
little bit
right.
of that in some areas.
I'm gonna use that as the hook for the YouTube video.
No. It's a great community, and they're very supportive of it. But this is why I was using Ableton really, is because the community was so active. When I was going on YouTube to learn how to use a compressor in Logic, Ableton Live tutorials would come up because the people using it were into it, and Ableton as a company is very supportive of their community. They do so many things. They're very active.
Where's Ableton based?
Berlin. They've also
Okay,
got an
Germany.
office
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, which is where I
Okay.
went to do the certification. I was there last year, just about this time, last February, doing a workshop at their headquarters. And they just opened it up. They said, hey, run something, you know? You can have the place for the weekend. And it was so cool. They just want activity going on around
Awesome.
what music making, and not even so specific to Ableton itself. They had the Loop gathering, or I guess what would we call it? The Loop Expo or convention type of thing, where they did it for a few years, and I only got to go to one before that was sort of it. But it was like gathering of music makers, and it wasn't Ableton specific. There's a lot. Ableton had their presence there, but they were just bringing in people to talk about making music, workshops. It was
Like a
awesome.
convention.
Yeah, but it wasn't like, here's the booth for Sweetwater, here's the booth, we're selling this. It wasn't that kind. It was just education, learning. And some of the best moments I had there were just hanging out in between seminars, talking to all the people you were meeting, and running into people you knew online. And, oh, hey, we've been talking, and were people I'd done podcasts with that I never met in person before.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. What was it called? The Ableton.
It's Loop, but the last one was 2018. They were gonna do one in 2020, but you know, we all know what happened in 2020. Then they've done like online events that are kind of have that Loop at home type of thing. But even like their Discord is really active, and that's just the way they are as a company, I guess. I think it's really helped them build it into what it is today. You know, some companies, like, you're not going to get Apple to like post your Logic tutorial, right?
Mhm.
So they've been great, and the certified trainer community is amazing. So many cool people, and every single one of them I've ever met is as cool as the next one. Like, really
Awesome. Yeah.
nice people that love sharing it, love the music, enthusiastic and excited about it. So they've done a
I'll
great
have to
job
look into
curating
that. I
that.
mean, I'm probably pretty far away from achieving that since I've only been using it a little over a year. But I mean, yeah, that
Well,
sounds
if you or anyone ever wanted to do that, I think the best advice I could give you is get involved. Um, Act like it. Act like you're a certified trainer almost, right? Like
okay.
they run
Fake it till you make it.
kind of, yeah, like play the role. They have user groups, and if they don't, if you wanted to set one up where you are, they'd be very supportive of that. They'd love for that, I'm sure. So doing things like that, putting tutorials out, sharing your knowledge and love for it. That's a lot of things, I guess, in music really, is just start doing it. Like, nobody
Mm,
told me I was allowed to make Ableton Live packs or tutorials. And even still, no one's ever told me I'm allowed to do it, right? All these
yeah,
years
yeah.
later, no one told me I was allowed to do a podcast. No one told me I was allowed to play guitar. Um, you just you do it. And maybe that's why
Be a
we have
go-getter.
a lot of imposter syndrome feelings with art, because you feel you're an artist. Like, you should have some kind of a plaque or something, right? Like some golden paintbrush that they give you, right? But none of that doesn't happen. Artists make art. They just do it, and you just do
Awesome.
it, and then
Yeah.
you're one that does it.
So this has been really enlightening, really inspiring. I got one last question for you, Brian, and then I'll let you go. So, this is my just for fun section. You're a high school English teacher. So, just for fun, what is your favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite book. Oh man, yeah. You know what? I'll resort to probably the book I've read more than any other book ever.
Harry Potter. No.
I've never read those. Just haven't. But I know I should, and I think I want to do that in my classes at some point. I'd probably say I got this asked this on my job interview as a teacher, and I said John Steinbeck's Tortilla Flat, which was a book about like a guy that inherited two houses, and he took one and he gave it to his friend, the other one to his friends, and his friends burnt it down. So he invited him to live in his house, and they fight and whatever. But I'm gonna pick another Steinbeck book, which would probably be Of Mice and Men. I've read that book out loud, I bet 100 times now to my classes. I read the whole thing to them, and every time I'm fighting back tears. It's so distilled. You know, the only stuff in there is the absolute most necessary stuff for the story, and every single line like reveals character or plot and human condition. I could actually just read it for you right now if you want, off the top of my head. I've read it so
Oh, you
many
have it
times.
memorized?
I feel like I do sometimes, but yeah, I don't know if there's any other book that I could read that many times and still want to still be
It's your
into it.
desert island pick. Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. But I guess that's fiction, right? And then maybe nonfiction, I might even just say War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Because that book really made me understand about the war of art. It's a battle and it's work at the same time, and consistency, discipline. Yeah, it's a great one. It makes you see a lot of things differently, or did for me anyway.
All right, Brian. So we're wrapping up here. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
I don't think so. I just hope that people make stuff. And especially now more than ever, sometimes people say, what's the point in making stuff now? AI can do it, or, all this stuff that's happening can be a little unsettling, but that's why, because only humans can, only you can make what you make, you know? No one can really copy you. No one can take whatever experience you've had. Everyone is unique. And I just hope that we all come together and learn how special that is in the wake of stuff that can create generative music or generative art. And, the stuff with a human behind it is just more and more fascinating. And so be human, be real, be ugly, you know, and just make stuff.
Awesome. You heard it here first. Make stuff and don't use AI unless I don't know where I'm going. Yeah. Don't use generative AI.
Well, look, do whatever you want, really, but be a human too, play with the toys. But yeah, like just something beautiful when a person makes something
Yeah. Even in the
out of nothing.
imperfections. Yeah.
It didn't exist. It's 100% unique, really.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Brian. And we'll see ya.
Thanks for having me.